you. Seriously, though, stop. Just stop. Quit it. Hi, sis. I strategically placed all of my best friends throughout the room. You should know, so I don't pass out. They all know where to go in case I hit the ground. What to do. The first time I ever led worship for Bethel Church was here. So it is like a full circle moment for me. If you'll forgive me if I get quiet or like I stutter every now and then, I feel very grateful. I feel very grateful to be trusted in this house. It's a special thing. Been here since 2008. This is my family. It's where I'm doing life. It's where I want to raise my babies. And I would love for you to know that you're terrifying and beautiful. And I really want you to know that it's a complete honor. I speak quite a bit for other things, but have never spoken for a conference at Bethel, so this is super sweet. And I definitely move around a lot, so if it makes you nauseous, just have some water. I kept telling myself, it's the 2 p.m., it's fine. It's a 2 p.m. session. Some of them will be napping, and some of them will go have coffee. It'll be fine. Just take a deep breath. Whew. I'm glad this is here. This is good because what you guys don't know is that this is what pulpits are for. It's actually for panic. It's like, just in case things go dark. And you just like lay down on it, and then everybody's like, wow, she's under it. Really under it, it's heavy. And everybody starts going, yes, Lord. But they know to run out with a bag and some water. I'm kidding. I'm not terrified of you. And I am nervous, but I'm so glad to be here. I am a good little Nazarene girl. I was born and raised in the Church of the Nazarene. I love the Church of the Nazarene with all of my heart. I'm a pastor's daughter. My mother is an incredible musician and singer-songwriter. So I got this mixture of crazy things. I don't remember a time in my house when we didn't end up around a piano and worship, or I would go to bed at night and I'd wake up to the sound of my dad praying over me, knelt down by my bed. It's a beautiful thing. And I'm really, really more aware all the time that was not everyone's story, that I'm super blessed that it was very easy for me to fall in love with Jesus. They'd be the first to tell you they aren't perfect, but man, they're real. They're the real deal. I don't know anyone who's more genuinely, they're lit up. They're going after God. They still serve in the Church of the Nazarene in Worcester, Ohio. And so that's my background. I came to school ministry in 2008, and I stayed. I came for the presence, and I stayed for the people. I found my people. I found my tribe. I decided not to do that rogue thing anymore. I'm like, can we not? Can we just all do this together forever? Yes. Yes. So when Eric asked me to speak, I pooped my pants, and then after we cleaned it up, I was able to respond to him. And say, yeah, I think I'm open. I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. And he said, I said, what do you want to talk about? Can you give me some parameters? Can you give me some sort of direction, And he's like, well, I actually just want you to crack your heart open and crack open your harp. I'm actually going to play the harp for you today. It's just back here. We'll roll it out later. I'm already loving this. I hope you are. It's really good. It's really good. No, he asked me, he said, we kind of want to open the conversation. Why worship? Why do we do this? And I realized I was kind of in a funk in my car. I'm like, man, is this a question? I know this is what you were talking about, but I think the question, why do we worship? What does worship mean to you? I don't know how many times I've been asked that. Does anybody get tired of that question? What does it mean to you to worship? What does it look like for you to just not just sing a song, but to really live a whole life of worship? And it sounds like I'm making fun of it. I am. But not the heart of the question, just more that it's like, how are we still asking this? But here's the thing. So I want to touch on this. Know that I sincerely, in my heart, before the Lord said, yeah, why? Can we have like a fresh thing? Do a fresh thing in my heart about this. If you can't do that, then there's no reason to talk anyways. Just speak to me. And this last year, He's been taking me back to the garden. I'm like living in Genesis, guys. I'm like straight up in Eden. I'm like, I talked about this summit, School of Worship this year, and I get really stoked when I read the Bible, because I'm like, and I'm used to reading it with my little girl Wonder now, who's 2 years old. So do I have a clock? Because I'm just gonna blow out. We'll keep going. What? Where is it? There's nothing on that. That's dark. You gotta tell me now before I get going, because I'm gonna be like, I'm not gonna come out easy. I just need to know where, just wave at me, everyone. So anyways, I've been back in the garden, and I had this moment while I'm reading Wonder Grace, my sweetest little babe. Oh, she's like, I'm in this place of discovery with her, and I feel like I'm learning all over again. And I feel like I'm hearing things for the first time, but instead of feeling like something brand new, it feels like I'm remembering. Does that make sense? Like I'm going back to the original blueprint. Like I'm going back to the thing that He designed me for. And it's something that He made me to know, but I forgot. And so He's taking me back to the garden. And I was listening to this, we have the YouVersion. It's like a little Bible app that tells Bible stories. It's really awesome. They can touch it. I'm not much for screen time, but it's really awesome. We've loved it. And she opened by herself the story of Adam and Eve and creation and all this kind of stuff. And all of a sudden I hear this voice from the kitchen, and it's something like this, and it says, and God said, do not eat from the tree of good and evil. And I'm like, what is that? What is this? And it's the snake, right? That's the snake's voice. That's the best I can do for you. That's the sound of Satan. So that's what it said. So He said to you, do not eat from the fruit, and surely you will die. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And I had this moment with God, and I thought, why did you tell them? Why did you put the freaking tree there in the first place? Why would you do that? In my mind, I'm like, this is like the classic setup. It's like a classic setup. No, don't eat from that tree, because you're gonna die. You can't know anything about it. It's like, don't push the red button. You're like, ooh, everything goes up in flames. So I just had this moment, and I'm like really honest, why? Why did you put it there? And He's a lover, and He's a friend, and He's a father. And it all started with family. And a good parent knows that there's a perfect time to tell their children something. They have vision for their life, for the longevity of their lives. And there's some things I'm not gonna tell Wonder at the age of 2. There's some things I'm not gonna teach her about sex today. Could that get weird or what? What? Yeah, no more jokes about that. So Anyways, I was gonna go for it, and I'm like, no. Because then the heavens may just close right up on us. So that is not the point. So I said to the Father, I'm like, why? He said, it's not. I was like, why didn't you want them to know? What would have killed them if why not eat from the fruit? And he said, it's not that I didn't want them to know. He said, I wanted them to find out another way. I wanted them to know another way. Because I knew once they knew, they couldn't unknow. And once they'd seen, they couldn't unsee. Could never have that moment back. And if any of you are parents, she's only 2, Wonder's only 2, but if any of you are parents, you're like, man, I know you're gonna find this stuff out, but I'd rather be the one to teach you than you to find out this way. I don't want you to know that way. You're not ready for this. And I think that the Father's heart, I don't think he was going, don't eat from this tree or you're gonna die. I'm gonna kill you. Because I can. I don't think that, he's a father. He's a father, and he was going, oh, don't eat from this tree. It'll kill you. You'll die. And I felt his heart in that moment. And I realized that because he wanted to give us the choice, he's a lover. He knows that true intimacy requires consent from 2 parties. It takes your yes, it takes my yes. He knew that if they were actually going to choose him with all of their hearts, that they had to be given the choice not to. And he's not into forcing our hand. What would it mean? He could have done without us otherwise. But he wanted to be with us. The whole point was to be close. So here's what I think happened. I think this is Steffany's version. When I went into this with the Lord, I envisioned Eve. I'm like, so what happened with her? Because I'm like, I've had it out for her since like day 1. I'm like, sis, if we ever run into each other, we're gonna have some things to say. Thanks for nothing. And a few other things that I won't mention from the stage. We are not okay. No, I get the feeling that in her freedom, maybe she got a little isolated. Maybe instead of going, hey, can we go for a walk? I gotta remember, I'm having these crazy thoughts. I'm having these thoughts like I can't trust you. I'm having these thoughts like maybe you're withholding something from me that's good. And I know better because you made me in your image, and I know you're a good father. I got the feeling that she was alone a little too long instead of pulling into family. And so then this snake comes along. He's having a bad day too. He is not stoked on his life. And so instead of recognizing right away what was going on with this snake, she engages in conversation with a liar, with someone who is also deceived. And I asked Lord, he said, what was the first thing that entered when they sinned, when they did what the Lord told them not to? It was shame. It was shame. They knew they were naked. They covered themselves. They were afraid. They saw all the stuff. Now they knew. Now they couldn't escape it, and they covered themselves. So there was sin, there was shame. And so instead of going to a father and going for a walk and just saying, man, remind me who you are. Because I know if I remember who you are, I'll remember who I am. And I won't have conversations with snakes. I won't get into this kind of conversation that, leads me. And so this conversation that she got into ended up leading her, to eat the fruit. And then Adam comes, and Adam ends up eating the fruit. And then when God comes, I don't think that he came as a going, what have you done? Like angry. I think that he came like, what'd you do? I told you not to eat that. I told you don't eat that fruit. He knew that intimacy required the choice, and he couldn't make it for them. And so what happened as a result is that then Adam blames Eve, and Eve blames the snake, and nobody can own their own crap now. Sorry if you hate that word. Nobody can own their own stuff. So they stay in this cycle of shame. We were meant for unbroken circles, not for cycles of brokenness. But what happened in that moment of shame was that they removed themselves from an unbroken circle, which was family, the Father, the Son, the Spirit. They removed themselves and they stepped into a cycle of brokenness that we have been trying to get out of since the garden. And so when I think of the question, why worship? I asked, Lord, what happens? What happens when we worship? What happens to me? And I heard this. We remember, we return, and we reconnect. Yeah, thank you. The first mention, the word worship, wasn't even used until Abraham's taking Isaac up to sacrifice him. It was after the fall that worship was even mentioned, which is kind of wild. And I know that in the Old Testament, now we're like, it's been paid for. The sacrifice once and for all has been paid. But in that moment, a blood sacrifice was still required. And I think the idea of worship as we know it now, I do think that it's beautiful. I think this is stunning. I think it's changing the world. I feel so overjoyed to be a part of it. But I think that the practice of worship as we know it has come from this trying to return. We're always trying to get back, because after the garden, it was like there was this need to have a practice that would cause us to remember, to return, and to reconnect. I think that worship in the garden, intimacy. I think that it looked like no space. I think it looked like going for walks, knowing one another fully. I think that that was his original heart for us, to stay so close, to be so near, that all of that was just constant. It was in conversation. God, I love you. Oh, I love you. I love you. I love walking with you. I love my life with you. I love everything about you. And I'm so thankful. I think that their conversation, I don't know how you could walk with him in a garden in the cool of day and not spill over with worship anyways, as we know it. And I think he knew that. When you're connected, it's easy to. And I think that because, to some degree, all of this life is us growing up to understand that we need to get little again, that we need to go back. So in worship, when we are in worship, even just in corporate worship, we're all together. We're lifting his name, like the way you feel in the room when every heart is lifted. You know, it's like electric. I want to lose it. In case you couldn't tell, I literally want to come out of my skin and go bonkers. I wasn't always that way. I just am realizing more and more as time goes on how greatly loved I really am. I am greatly loved greatly loved by him, and I can't help myself. And the more time I spend going back to the garden and I'm understanding his original intent for us, his original intent that worship would look like removing all the space. Those moments in worship that we are like, we feel suspended, like your feet aren't on the ground, but you're not there yet, and you just feel like you could explode. That's because it's gotten super thin. And we're returning. We're remembering. I don't know how many times I've heard people come in. Man, that gets you. That'll get you. I'm not even sure I know what that means. 9. What? Somebody read that. It's like an army clock. I don't do that well. I don't have time to count that out. We're close. I'll wrap it up. We have 10 minutes, 9 minutes. Whew. That's what that means? Okay. I'll work on that for next time. I'll learn to count. So, that's so good. When we're in a focused place of worship, when we make this a practice, because it centers us. I know that we will always worship because he's worthy. Duh. Don't hear me wrong. I'm not saying, of course we worship him because he's worthy. It's always first for that. But I think that the practice of worship is more for us than for him. I really, really feel like he had an idea for it to look one way, but then it didn't really go that way because we kind of chose something else. And so we have this practice, and it's stunning. He loves it. It's amazing. I'm not saying we should change it. I think that there's a lot. I think the face of worship is going to change an awful lot in these next 10 years. I really do. But he knew that in this place, if we would come and worship, if we'd come and build him an altar, that we start to remember. When we look at him, it's like, you know how when you get a taste in your mouth of something that like takes you back to like, I don't know, like Thanksgiving grandma's pie or something, and all of a sudden you're just like, oh, I'd give anything to be there just for 20 minutes, to sit at the table again, to feel all the feelings, to have that pie, to hear my great-grandfather pray. And all of a sudden you want to find yourself back there. That's what happens when we worship. You start to worship, and all of a sudden you remember. You're like, oh, I've tasted this. I've smelled this. I was made for this. And you start to remember something that he made you for that maybe you've never known here, but your spirit's always known it. Your spirit's always known that you were made for intimacy, that worship was always supposed to look like this. That there was never supposed to be separation. And when we remember, we're like, oh, I got to go back there. And we return. I think there's this incredible returning happening right now. Where we're remembering something that we forgot. And so we're like, oh, I've tasted this and I can't ever go back. I won't go back. I won't go back to, I'm very confusing now. Returning, going back, it's all the thing. Returning, I won't go back to that thing that I was taught in the world. I'm gonna return to the original blueprint, to the thing I was created for. I don't know anybody who leaves worship and doesn't know, oh, I was made for this. I was born for this. My dad said to me when he was teaching me to drive in high school, every time we got in the car, he would say to me, wherever you look, that's where that car is going, baby. Wherever you look, that's where the car is going. It's following you. When we return, when we fix our eyes again, that's where the car goes. We have to have this practice. Why worship? Because we have to. We have to. I'm driving all over the place. Driving that car all over the place. Lose your life on some sort of path that wasn't meant for you. Right here. Right here. Right here. We remember, we return. We return. I have this, I'm almost done. I'll wrap this up. We'll pray and move on. I have this, for a number of years, this ongoing encounter with the Lord. Whew, so emotional in a beautiful way. This ongoing encounter with the Lord that I would leave my body in worship. We were having revival break out in this little Nazarene church in Ohio. And I would often just end up under the chairs crying because what else do you do? And it was in that place that this encounter started, and it continued for several years afterwards. It's been a while, but I would find myself on like Oceanside, and I would see the Lord at a distance, and he would be sitting on the shore watching the waves, and I knew every time I saw him, he was waiting for me. I don't know if this messes with anybody's theology. I know he pursues us, but sometimes he waits for us, guys. He waits. And he was sitting there, and he was always waiting for me, and I'd do this kind of, dang it, again. You know, it's like I always knew when I went into this encounter that I needed to remember something. Something was happening, and there was a returning, and he'd been waiting for me to come back to something, you know, in my heart, whatever. Anyways, so I'd go sit with him, and he would say to me, it was almost every time, he would just say, oh, I've missed you. I've missed you. Just like I would my best friend. And I said, I know it. I missed you too. I just forgot. And I'm sorry that it took me so long. But thanks for waiting. And I would sit with him and we'd just talk. Not about things that would seem important maybe to anyone else, but they were to me. And they sure were to him. We reconnected. Every time I returned, it was like, reconnect. He wanted so badly to be close. It's all he ever wanted, was all of me. We worship because he's worthy, but we worship because we worship for our lives. We worship to stay close. Sometimes when I go bonkers in worship, I think sometimes people think that I'm manifesting the Spirit. Sometimes, yeah, sometimes. Sometimes I just shake and flip around because I'm getting over myself. Sometimes I just feel like something's tried to sit on me and I'm like, and it's not gonna happen. And I'm not about to lead you into that place. No. So I'm gonna get over me, and I'm gonna remember, and I'm gonna return, and I'm reconnecting. There's a lot of reasons why we go bonkers, and that's one of them. Let's pray. Let's just pray. Oh, Jesus, Father, sweet Spirit of God, sweet Spirit of God. Oh, you are everything to us. When we forget, it doesn't change the fact that you are everything. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for the fire of your love that won't rest to be distant from us. Your love that insists on being close. Oh, God, we love you. We love you. We love you. And we'll do whatever it takes. We'll do whatever it takes to stay here. To constantly remember to return. And to stay connected to you the way your heart always dreamed we would. the way your heart always dreamed we would, without separation, without space, without shame. God, we ask that as we look at you, as we worship you, that we would remember who you are and that we would become confident who you've made us to be. That for those who need to remember, that you would cause them to remember, and those who need to return, that you would bring them back home. And for those who need to reconnect, that you would open the conversation. We love you. We love you. We love you. We love you. Amen.